Now that the minimum investment amount has increased to $800,000, that makes up even a larger portion of the investor's net worth than it did before. Um, do they have to make the investment all at once? Do they have to invest that entire $800,000 in order to qualify for EB-5, or are there other options that they can pursue?
Yeah, I think the good thing about EB-5 is that they offer that flexibility of partial funding. Um, in the regulations, an investor has to be what's called in the process of investing. Before the RIA, a lot of people were still kind of iffy about partial because it was never strictly written in law. I think we were one of the few firms out there who were doing partial funding since what,
We got
2016,
savage in the
2017.
beginning.
A lot of
when we
people says
proposed
you
this.
can't do it. You can't do partial funding. And we're like, no, the regulations say you can be actively in the process of investing, which means you can invest X amount right now, and then over a certain period of time, invest the balance. Under the new RIA and the new I-526 forms, they actually have a
It's explicit.
explicit timeline where you note down exactly when you expect to complete your investment.
Which follows kind of like how we used to set it up, you know.
It follows exactly to the T
Right,
how we
how we
set it.
set this up.
You know, so you invest X amount right now. You still have to show the source of funds for the full 800,000, but you explain to USCIS that I'm investing, let's just say $400,000 right now. This is where it's coming from. I'm committed, and I expect to invest the balance in 12 months. This is where the balance of the investment is going to come from. Fast forward 12 months, we file a second application and show USCIS, like, look, I said I was going to do this, and here it is. I've invested the balance, and this is where it's actually come from.
Yeah, we partial investments is near and dear to us because, you know, for our firm, like I think over time, partial investments for us came out both out of necessity and also because it's something that we thought that was an important option to have for our investors, right? EB-5 is a unique area because a lot of the law is not that complex, but there's not a lot of guidance. There's not a lot of clear-cut answers. A lot of people want clear-cut answers.
A lot of interpretation.
A lot of firms refuse to sign off on partial investments because they had not heard of a case being approved before. We had proposed this back, we originally came up with this because if you remember before we had this 5-year extension, it seemed like every 6 to 8 months, EB-5 was gonna expire. EB-5 is gonna expire, right? It's like a movie with a bad sequel that keeps happening. And so what would happen is people would try to lock in the investment amount. They would have kids close to aging out, and they would start freaking out because they're like, how do we get this case through the door and get it approved? How do we lock in our eligibility? And so we proposed to them and some of the projects or regional centers we work with that you can do partial investments, right? Show that you're actively in the process of investing, lock in your eligibility, and so long as it's agreed upon between you and the regional center and project, fund the remaining amount at a later time, right? Uh, Other firms said you couldn't do it. We were challenged. Whenever we've done partial investments, all those cases have been approved, right?
Well, you know what the irony is with this? Is that this is another example, which this is a common kind of theme in my experience in just being in the EB-5 space over the last 10 years or so, of where the rest of the capital market or the securities market has been doing something since forever, for decades, but it's new in EB-5.
Right?
Like what we're talking about is standard operating procedure in the rest of the investment world. Like if someone commits to me $300 million, they don't write me a check for $300 million that day. We have a system, a drawdown, where they've made a binding commitment,
Right.
and over a period of time, we draw that capital down.
A contractual agreement.
This is the exact same arrangement.
No one just has $800,000 in liquid
Yeah,
cash just lying around
yeah.
that, hey, I can just put it into something, you know? So, you know, people need the flexibility. They still have everyday expenses. They still have mortgages. They still have tuition fees. They still have all these things that they need to account for. So this at least helps them plan. They can financially plan, be more flexible over a 12-month period or so. And the cool thing is that with the new concurrent rules, you can submit partial funding with the initial application, and you still get those EAD AP benefits within 6 months, and then you fully fund 6 months later.